Okay, today's tutorial, I'm going to try to demonstrate some common techniques for problem solving in a mesh. So just kind of doing cleanup for a mesh that's messy or is having any kind of problems, as well as just kind of common techniques for combining meshes and just becoming more fluid in Maya. And I think knowing this stuff helps. It's helped loosen me up in the past, just in terms of what I was willing to try in Maya and stuff like that, knowing that I can make some repairs. In order to do this demonstration really well, it would probably help me to have like a really messy mesh, which I don't happen to have right now. But I think I can kind of simulate some of the most common problems here, hopefully. So, probably the most common problem that I do and I see other people do is I'll see instances where someone might have extruded by mistake. And remember, you don't have to hit the extrude button to extrude. You can just by mistake hit Shift and E, and it can kind of happen. Um, and you notice how I didn't move it at all. So normally when you extrude, you select the face and you pull it out. But if a face or an edge gets extruded here, and for whatever reason you press edit undo, but you don't press it edit and undo enough times to fully undo the extrusion, um, or if you hit it by mistake or anything like that, it happens a lot. And I'll do it over here for an edge as well, where I'll just hit extrude and then not pull it out. And so normally, one way you can kind of tell that that's happened is, let's just say that I try to do the multi-cut tool, oops, or the insert edge loop tool somewhere else by holding control. You'll see normally it just works. But remember, this is the face right here where I did the extrusion on top and didn't undo it and didn't pull it out. Oh, look at that. So it looks like it worked when I'm doing the control button, like it looks like it's going to work, but you see there that it doesn't go through all the way. And so from there, sometimes people might look at that and be like, oh, the multi-cut tool is just acting a little weird. And then try to connect it up here. And, the reason this isn't working great for me is because this is a bit of a mistake here. So I'm kind of making some mess ups here on purpose just to kind of get this thing going. So one thing that I do is if I press 3 on my keyboard, that's a good way to kind of check and see if something's rotten in Denmark here. Particularly if you right click and go to Vertex Mode, and then you press, so in one mode this kind of looks fine, or I could, especially if this 5-sided face here was small in the mesh, it'd be pretty easy to kind of mistake this for a mesh that looks fine. Like these vertices don't look like they're stacked on top of each other in particular or anything like that. But then when I press 3, you can kind of start to see some things pop up here. Something else that might happen is, for instance, if you're using the multi-cut tool and drawing like that, sometimes if I'm drawing like a multi-cut tool that I'm trying to draw around the model, I'll kind of draw it in, but then maybe on the back side, like I'll be drawing the tool here, but then like a vertex will get drawn on the opposite side of the model here by mistake. And you can see there's just like a stray vertex showing up there and there from using the multi-cut tool. So that's something else I see a lot. And finally, one last problem, and it's one that I do a good amount, is, if I'm using the multi-cut tool, and let's just say I'm trying to draw it out from the center to this point right here. And I start on the center and I make sure that the edge turns red, and then I draw it, and sometimes I'll just draw it in real quick right there, and I don't wait for that vertex to turn all the way red. And then when you do that and you press return, uh, this face right here looks fine. This face right here looks fine, but what we have here ends up being a 5-sided face, even though just kind of zoomed out, it looks okay. So I'm kind of messing up this mesh on purpose here, and hopefully I'll kind of show a way to clean this up. So what are the main ways that I use to clean up a mesh that's got, a few issues or something like that? So there's the press the 3 button and then right click and vertice. And so sometimes if there is, or there's some vertices that are stacked on top of each other, you can see them kind of pop out into place if you look right there. So that's one kind of telltale sign. I think that's a really good thing to do. And then additionally, another helpful thing to do is if you go to Mesh, Cleanup and Options box. So it's, again, this Mesh, Cleanup and Options box right there. And usually when I'm doing this, the main thing that I'm selecting out of all these tabs, it might show up blank if you set it at default. Let me just set this to the default settings. Yeah, so in the default settings, it might look like this when you pull up the window. And the one that I'm concerned with is I don't want to do 4-sided faces. If I do 4-sided faces right there, it'll turn it all into tries and kind of make the mesh look like that. So you don't want to do that. But faces with more than 4 sides is the one that I'm concerned with. So under mesh cleanup options, I'll check this one and press apply, and you'll see here that Maya tries to fix it, and it doesn't do a great job, but it highlights it in orange, the problem areas. And so I'll just use that as my guide when I'm trying to fix things up here. So what I'll do is in objects mode, I'll go to mesh cleanup options, make sure that this one's selected, faces with more than 4 sides, and press apply. And I'll see here that there's a problem area right here it's trying to fix. So I'll just edit undo, and then you look at it and it kind of looks fine. But then the next thing I'll do is I'll right click and go to vertex mode. That's kind of usually the first thing I do to check. And just right away I can see I have a 5-sided face right here. So you can check to see if something's a 5-sided face. I find it easiest to do in vertex mode because you can just count the vertices going around the face. So a normal face like this one right here is 1, 2, 3, 4. But this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so when I delete the vertice, so right there I just select the vertice so that it highlights yellow and then press delete on my keyboard. It'll just go away and that'll fix it. And so now I'll select the object in objects mode again, so right click in objects mode, and I'll click apply under this cleanup options box again. And you can see here that that didn't highlight orange, so that area should be fixed. And so I'll just kind of navigate around here and I'll press apply again. I can see I have a problem area below the chin here. So let's just check out this area. So right click again. You can see here that in vertex mode, in object mode, I can see that this is probably a 5-sided face right here, but in vertex mode, it just kind of eliminates a few more things. Because I can see here that again, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided face. And then there's this stray vertice over here. And so I could just kind of delete that vertice. Something else I could do to fix that if I wanted to is I could go to multi-cut and then click on that vertex and then connect it to that vertex, press return, and then select that vertex and then click it into the center there and press return. And now I've divided this into 4 faces. So that's another way to fix it. One other thing here, let me just move this model so that it's just away from the grid here a little bit. Now I'm going to hide the eye. So one other thing when it comes to fixing meshes that's important to remember here is you can delete vertices really well. Um, but if it's connected to something, like if it's connected in a way that Maya considers correct, I'll select that vertex and it won't let me delete. So just kind of keep that in mind. One other thing here, in terms of deleting objects. So if I delete, let's just say I want to delete this edge right here. So I'll select this edge, shift select that edge, and then I press delete. And it looks like it deleted here. But notice that in edge mode that this edge is still divided into two. But in object mode, it kind of looks fine. It just looks like a normal edge right there. But if I right click and go to vertex mode, I can see that the vertices from the edge don't delete. And so whenever you delete an edge, you need to, after you delete the edge, you have to right click and go to vertex mode and then do some cleanup after it and delete the vertices that are left behind. So I'll show that again here, back here. So let's just say I want to delete those two edges. I'll delete it. The model looks fine. It looks like it went well. But then if I right click and go to vertex mode, you can see that there's some vertices, some stray vertices left behind. So whenever you delete an edge, you just have to right click and delete vertices after. So that's a pretty common problem I see. And whenever those vertices remain, and they're not connected to anything like that, that's a problem right there. And so if I just delete that, that should help kind of clean up that mesh. So again, I'll just right click and go to objects mode and then go to mesh, cleanup, and then the options box, press apply. And so that again, that's just going to show me problem areas. And just kind of moving up to this area right here. So I'll just press edit undo to kind of move out of it. And it's pretty obvious what the problem is here on this one, right? When I was kind of messing around with this, is this, I kind of intentionally made this multi-cut tool a little sloppy right there. So let's just say that I had a nose here. And I'll extrude out the nose. And so I needed this edge to kind of continue up, something like that. You know, so let's just pretend that I need this edge right here. But then I have this 5-sided face right here. And so you can tell it's a 5-sided face. I feel like in vertex mode is the easiest way to tell. So you can just go around and count the vertices surrounding the face. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So one thing you could do to fix this as a 5-sided face is you could continue the edge loop going around to the other side. And to kind of fix 5-sided faces, I usually try to feed the edge loop into either a hole. So like I consider this eye a hole right here, or feed it into the center, the center of the head right here, and then mirror it over. And so what I'll do there is you can use the insert edge loop tool or the multi-cut tool to kind of feed it back around. But you'll notice when I do the insert edge loop tool, it won't go all the way around and connect to that side. But that's okay. And I think that's actually a pretty decent feature of Maya because it's just kind of its way of telling you that you might need to clean up the geometry a little bit if it doesn't kind of connect all the way around. And this will be a really easy one. So I'll just do the insert edge loop tool to kind of bring it in. And then I'll press Q to get out of it. And that's super important, is to press Q after using the insert edge loop tool. So let's just say, for instance, that I do the insert edge loop tool and then I don't press Q. Again, like there's times I've seen it and it's hard to kind of show. But did you see what I just did there? I just created an insert edge loop tool by mistake on top of the mesh right there. And so that can definitely happen. And when I press 3, it loses its mind at that point. So it's just, you know, something to look out for there. I'm just going to edit undo and kind of bring this back. So anyway, going back to this, so I wanted to feed this edge around. And so I just created an insert edge loop tool here to kind of feed it around to the other side. And then all I need to do is the multi-cut tool is probably your main tool for fixing things up. And so I'll just go down to the multi-cut tool in the modeling toolkit. And I'll just click and make sure that that vertex turns red. Click, make sure that vertex turns red. Then press return. And now the geometry should be feeding around to the back here. And so now we've got quads going all the way around. And I'm actually really glad here on something else that happened here. So if you recall, I extruded out this quote unquote nose right here. And you can see here that there's a face right there. And so something else that I'll see happen a lot is it's pretty understandable that that face might get created and you might not notice it. And then go ahead and mirror the geometry over. Oh, shoot, I was hoping that was going to mess up in a more subtle way. Let's see if I can get this mess up to happen a little more subtly. I'll snap this to the center here. So snapping vertices to the center, by the way, is if you just hold X on your keyboard, X as in Xerox, it'll snap things to the grid, so you can snap vertices or objects or anything down to that center grid right there. So how is snapping that to the center grid? So that when I mirror this, the nose will look normal in there. And so it looks normal, but then if I navigate to this inside of the nose, did it just fix it for me? That is a rare thing right there. Well, sometimes, I guess I just kind of lucked out there. There'll be a face that ends up, and I'll just recreate it. Oh man, it's not even letting me create the mess up. Whoops, that didn't go as planned. Sometimes a face will end up in here in the middle of the nose when you extrude it, especially when you mirror it over. Particularly if you're working in symmetry mode over here. And so it's just kind of good to look in the center here, and sometimes an error will show up in the mesh because there will be a face in the center of the nose. That's kind of something I see a lot. Maybe in the center of the mouth too, if you have an extrusion for the mouth down there. And so it just helps to go inside of the face and just check to make sure that that's clear if you're getting errors when you're bringing this over to Mudbox or something like that. So let me just right click, go to face mode. I'm going to delete out this side again of the model and just kind of continue looking for problems in the mesh. So there's going to be a problem up here. So I'll just go ahead and right click and go to vertex here. So if I see a problem here, and I can tell this one's going to be a little bit hairy, something I'll do sometimes, and so this is a super common one. And if you recall, this is a mess up that I kind of created here at the beginning of this demo, where I took a face like this one and then I extruded it, but I didn't pull it out or anything like that, and then kind of kept moving with the model. And so when that happens, you end up with some vertices that are on top of each other, and it kind of goes like that. I feel like this is probably the most common problem that I see. And so again, the best way to fix this, I feel like, is you can go to the mesh cleanup tool, and it'll just kind of show you usually that there's a problem here if you press apply. But you notice here that I created an extrusion on top of itself right here, and I didn't do anything else. And you'll see here that that mesh cleanup tool didn't show an error. It did show an error here because I kind of added some edge loops and stuff like that on top of it. But I'm just kind of demonstrating here that that mesh cleanup tool doesn't always show when you extrude one face on top of another and don't move it. Usually that error will show up once you start trying to work on this mesh, and it won't let you create edge loops around it and stuff like that. So the way that I fix this is I'll right click and go to Vertex Mode, and I'll press 3 on my keyboard, and I can kind of see things are going pretty wacky there. And so I'll see that something's going wrong. And the main way you can tell is if you pull the vertex out and it starts kind of making some overlapping shapes like that. So usually what I have to do, and these are a real pain to fix, but in the end, if I grab that face and pull it out, you can kind of find it. And so if you can, just kind of select that center face and pull it out and find that it really was an extrusion. One good way to fix this, there's a few things you could do. But one thing that I do a lot of times when I'm fixing something like this is I kind of have one of two options. I could right click and go to edge mode and then just go around deleting edges right there, and then making sure I right click and go to vertex and making sure that no stray vertices were left behind. Since I deleted an entire edged loop right there, it managed to delete the vertices, which is nice. So that's probably the easiest way to do that. Something else that you could do, and it just kind of depends on your problem mesh, you know, is you could kind of pull it out in such a way and then just delete all the faces there and just give yourself like a nice clean gap in the mesh here. And this might give me problems because I intentionally made some problems over here. But if I right click and go to edge and then select the edge loop that's surrounding it right there. So I just selected the edge loop surrounding it. And you can do that just by shift, or you can just double click an edge and it should select the edge loop for you there. And then if you go to the modeling toolkit and you press bridge, so again it's this bridge button right here, it'll connect a bridge and fix the mesh for you. So the bridge tool, sometimes I'll intentionally punch a hole in my geometry, delete it out, and then just again right click, go to edge mode, select those edges right there, and then just press bridge, and I'll have a clean version of the model. And then after I press bridge, just as a force of habit, I'll go right click and go to vertex mode and just drag a vertex around and just make sure, this is all connected and there's no problems. And then I'll press edit undo after I kind of squiggle it around like that. And so the bridge tool is a really helpful kind of problem solver fixing tool along with the multi-cut tool. So moving on to this area, this is nice because I actually don't remember what's going on here. So this will be telling if I can figure this out. So I can see that this is a problem right here. I remember when I did the mesh cleanup thing, it showed, that this was a problem. Right click and go to vertex. That's usually the most telling view you can do. And then if you press 3, you can see when things are, 3 will usually kind of reveal some things to you. Because it looks kind of okay in regular mode, sort of. But then when I press 3, it just goes absolutely crazy. So let's try to fix this thing. So let's just say when trying to fix this that I'm just trying to get it so that this edge loop right here connects with that edge loop right here, and then there's none of this craziness happening there. So let's just say that's the fix that I'm trying to do. So in that situation, what I would do is I'd right click and go to edge mode, and I would delete this edge, and I would delete that edge, and that would kind of get me started. And then from there, I would just press 3. I can see that there's still a ton of problems with this thing. Go back to 1, and here I'll right click and go to vertex. I can see here that I have at least a 5-sided face going on, or a 6-sided face, but there's a stray vertice that's happening right there. And again, I punched in on that vertice by pressing F on my keyboard. And so I'll just delete that. And you see here that it's not letting me delete that vertice. And so when that happens, don't get frustrated. It's just kind of a sign that that's not the right fix, and you gotta kind of keep looking. So what I'll do, if it won't let me delete a vertice, is I'll select it and I'll just move it around and just kind of see what's going on with it. And so I drag that vertice up and I can see that it had two edges that are overlapping this edge right here. So I'll just select that vertice, press W, and then move it up a little. And so to fix this, it'll probably still not let me delete that vertice. You see I'm pressing delete right now and it's not letting me do it. So I'll right click and go to edge. And I'll select those two edges and delete them. And you can see there, it's not letting me do that either. And so from there, if that doesn't work, I'll right click and go to face mode. And then I'll delete that face right there. And so I have a hole in the mesh, but that's okay. Fixing holes in the mesh is actually really easy to do once you get used to it. It's just, there's the bridge tool is one way to close holes in the mesh. And then the V button, which is also the snap to points button right here, is a really helpful tool. And so what I'll do here is I'll right click and go to vertex mode, and I want to snap that point to that point and then merge them together. And so that's how I would begin to fix this mesh right here. And so there, I'll just go into move mode by pressing W or pressing this button right here. And then I'll hold down V as in vampire. So hold down V and then just click it and drag it in and it'll snap it to that point. And so from there, it's not, those two vertices are in the same spot, but they're not welded together. So you see here when I just select a vertice, I'm not doing a drag and select, but I'm just doing like a click right here. You can see these vertices are still not connected after I snap it. So again, I'll just hold down V and I'll snap it, and then that'll be step one. Step two is to drag and select both vertices like that. I'll press 4 real quick to make sure I'm not selecting any vertices in the back here by mistake, like making sure I'm not dragging and selecting a bunch of vertices like that. So I'll just drag and select like that. And again, I get to wireframe by pressing 4. I'll go back to shaded view by pressing 5. And then I need to merge them together. So I'll press this merge button right here, or go to edit mesh and merge. So you can also find it there. And that'll merge those vertices together. And then from here, I just need to do a multi-cut tool to connect this, to turn this from a 5-sided face into 2 4-sided faces. So I'll just do a multi-cut, make sure that vertice glows red, make sure that vertice glows red, and you see there it's like pretty finicky. And it helps just to zoom in sometimes to get it. And I think there might be a problem here on this one. Interesting. Okay, so you see here, you know, this is the rare occasion where I'm like glad when I see problems, because I'm just trying to find all the problems that you might run into here and just try to expose them. So you see here, it's not letting me connect these two vertices right now. So I'll just kind of get out of that. And so if I run into that problem, what I'll typically do is I'll right click and go to face mode, and I'm just going to delete out this face and just get rid of it. And then I'm going to right click and go to vertex. And what I want to do now is to press 3. And there is definitely some funky stuff in here. I gave myself a challenge on this one. So you can see here, so I selected that vertice right there. I'm going to press 1 again. And so I can follow that vertice to there. And I'm just toggling between 1 and 3, 1 and 3. And so 1, 3. But now I can see there's these vertices in here. So I'll press 1 again, and then 3. And you see here that this vertice is in the same position as that one and that one. I bet you if I select all 3 of these vertices and I punch it back to 1, it's going to go to the same place. So I'll press 1, and all those vertices are in that same XY position. So something I could hypothetically do is I could try to merge them, but instead what I want to do is I want to press 3 and just kind of find these and start deleting. I think that's usually kind of the best way to kind of go about fixing this thing. So I'll just delete. And what I'm looking for here are areas, you see how the model should appear gray on the outside and then black on the inside. So any areas that appear black on the outside are usually a problem here in this situation. And so I'm just going to go in and delete those out, and I still have a little work ahead of me here on fixing this thing. So I'll go to Object Mode, press 1 again, right click and go to Vertex and press 3 again, and just kind of find some more problems here. Something else that might be easier to do rather than deleting faces is to delete edges. That didn't work, so I'll try faces again. So here's something that's really helpful too on this is, so one mode, again, this looks fine, but when I press 3, it goes crazy. So when I press 3, I'll right click and go to face mode. I'll select a face, then I'll press 1 again. And if it disappears like that, then I know that that face is just squished in on itself in reality. So I'll press 3 again and I'll just delete it out. So I'm in 3 mode. Select this face, press 1, it deletes, it or it squishes in. So I'll go back to 3, delete it. And I'm just going to keep doing that. So I'm in 3 mode, press 1, it kind of squishes in. Go back to 3 and delete it. I'm just repeating that step over and over again. So I'm in 3 mode, check 1, looks fine in 1 mode, but weird in 3 mode, so I'm just going to delete it there. Same thing here. And you see here, I just keep selecting faces in 3 mode that I think might be, something might be wrong. Then I press 1 and you see it's kind of squished in on itself. So I'll go back to 3 and I'm going to delete that out. And then I got one really crazy edge going on here. So what I'm going to do here is, instead of face mode, I'm going to go into vertex mode. You see I'm looking at this vertex right there. So this is going to be a tricky one to fix, I bet. So I'll press 1. It's so crazy. Like, it looks fine there. Press 3. And so I'm going to try deleting that vertex. That didn't work. I'm not surprised. I'll right click and go to edge. That'll be the second thing I try. So I'll try deleting that edge. Still not letting me do it. This is going to be a tricky one. Right click and go to face. I want to check this face right here. I'll press 1 and you see it disappears again. So I'll go back to 3. I'm going to delete that. We're starting to get close. So this is a really tricky one I created for myself. Okay. So fixing this one is going to be a trick. Here we go. Whoa. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead. One thing this would be good to do here too is save, and then save incrementally. So if the thing crashes, you know, you don't lose your work. Especially if you've been problem solving, because it can be really demoralizing if you're problem solving and you almost get it and then the computer crashes. So this was a tricky one right here, and it took me a minute to figure this out. And so I have the stray vertex that's connected to an edge, but nothing else. And so the thing that I suggest doing when you run into problems like this is trying to select the vertex and pressing delete over and over again is not going to work. You know, it is good just to try it a few times or a couple times just to make sure. But what ended up fixing it here is I right clicked and I went to edge mode. And so I just selected this edge, the straight edge, and trying to figure it out. I just want to pull it out of position. So I'll press W and then pull it out. And you can see here that what it was a face that was squished in on itself, or a try that was squished on itself. So in order to fix that, again, I just press W just to kind of expose it. And whoa, let me undo. Maya did not care for that. It's good I just saved this thing. So I'm going to open up that file I just saved. I'm not going to save that. So I'll right click, go to edge, select that edge, press W and pull it out. And then right click and go to face and delete that face. So this thing's starting to get a lot closer now. I still have this crazy area up here, but I'm not worrying about that one yet. And so all I'm worrying about is repairing this area right here. And so I want to make sure that when I press 1, it looks like that. When I press 3, it kind of looks something like that in there, where it's kind of rounded out in a predictable way. And so, you know, there's a hole in the mesh, but that's just super easy to fix. So in order to fix this hole, what I would do is I'd right click and go to edge mode, and I would just select that edge loop right there and then press bridge. Or you can just select this edge and then select this edge, press bridge, and select this edge, select that edge, and then press bridge. And right there, and from there I'll just press W on a vertex and just kind of check to make sure that these things welded together all right. The bridge tool works pretty well, so it should kind of weld together automatically for you there. So that's the way I kind of clog that or fix up that hole. So let me just show that one more time. So if you have a hole in your mesh like this that you want to fix, you can either select the whole edge loop but just by shift double clicking and then pressing bridge. And then with this one, I would need to go to multi-cut and then just connect there and press return. And now this thing is fixed. Or I could, it's very similar, just slightly different, as I could right click and go to edge. Hold down shift, so select that edge, hold down shift, select that edge right there. So 1, 2, and then press bridge. And then select this edge right here, hold down shift, select that edge, 1, 2, and then press bridge. And those things are kind of back together again. So when I press 3 on the keyboard, I can see that there's this weird horn in my character up there. Everything else is starting to look kind of normal, but I have this weird horn up here. And so that tells me something's wrong. So I'll right click and go to Vertex Mode. Vertex Mode is usually my best way of just kind of figuring out, is something going on here? It looks normal, you know, like I'm not seeing anything too crazy there, but I'll just go back to 1. And I'll select one of these vertices in the problem area, and I'll just drag it out. And you see there, that's a sign that an edge got extruded on itself. If you remember from earlier in the tutorial, what caused this little horn problem area right here is that I selected an edge right there, and I pressed extrude, and then I just didn't move. I just pressed Q and I moved on and I didn't move it. So we have one edge stuck on top of another here. So the way to fix that is there's a few things you can do, but I'll just right click and go to Vertex Mode. I usually find Vertex Mode to be my best mode for kind of fixing problems. And I'll just drag it down. And so I can see one face is sticking out there. I'll go up here. I'll drag that down. And I can see it looks like that face is coming to an end. And I'll just kind of keep dragging just to make sure that this thing comes to an end. And when I move these vertices down here, always make sure to press edit undo just to undo the work. But I can see here only one edge extruded on itself. So what I can do here is I can just right click and go to face, select that face right there, and then just press delete. And then I'll right click and go to Vertex Mode and check my work by pressing W, moving around, moving that around. So that looks like that welded together here. So now I'm going to check my work again. To my eye, this mesh looks clean here, so I'll press 3. That looks okay. I'll right click and go to Vertex Mode. That's a good way to kind of check things. Just check in for 5-sided faces. Looks good to my eye. And then with the object selected, just kind of like a fail safe, are there any 5-sided faces on this thing? I'll go to Mesh, Cleanup, Options box, and make sure faces with more than 4 sides is on, and press Apply. And since nothing lit up orange here, this model should be fine here. And so again, just to kind of reiterate, probably the most common problem I see from myself and from others is just an edge will just kind of get extruded by mistake. Maybe someone press, was it Control E by mistake, you know, and the extrusion, you know, it looks normal, but there's really one edge stacked on top of another there. And so again, the way to kind of root that out is if you press 3 on your keyboard, if the smooth, and then right click and go to vertex, and that'll usually kind of show it, but the mesh cleanup tool won't show it when an edge is just extruded on top of itself and it's overlapping. So let's see here. So again, the way that I fix that is I'll press 3 to kind of root it out, and I'll make sure I'm in vertex mode. And then I'll go back to 1. I'll press W and just kind of move it around a little bit and just see if I can find something there. And one thing you can do is using F and navigating around your camera is really important. But I can see here, you can just kind of pull out the edge. See, that's a problem. And to delete something like this, what I tend to do, instead of trying to delete the edge, which won't work, you know, it's not letting me delete the edge, and I right click and it's probably not going to let me delete these vertices, I'm guessing. Oh, it did let me delete the vertices. Or let me delete one vertice but not the other. That's funny. But the best way to kind of delete something like this, and the most surefire way of deleting something in Maya, is just right click, go to face, select the face, delete it. Whenever you delete a face in Maya, it's gone. And if I right click and select vertices, it won't show anything. And if I right click and go to edges, there won't be anything left over either. So when you delete a face, the edges, the face, and the vertice are all gone. And so it's just kind of like a clean way of deleting things. And so again, if you recall, the way that I fix a hole in the mesh like that is the first thing I'll do is I'll try to bridge it. So you can just select one edge, hold down Shift, select the other edge, press bridge, and it'll bring it together. I could have also selected that entire edge loop right there and press bridge. And then additionally, the other really good way of bridging things is, let's just say that I extruded this edge and pulled it out like this. And I needed to combine this flap onto this model right here. That's that V button shortcut thing again. So I'll right click and go to vertex. I'll select the vertex that I want to move right here. And let's just say that I want it to be in that position right there. So I'll press W to move it, then hold down V, snap it, drag and select, press 4 to make sure I didn't select any stray vertices behind it. And then just merge it together. So it's just a 2-step process. It's really easy once you get used to it here. And so I'll just repair this one right here. So I'll get into move mode by pressing W. Then I'll hold down V and then just snap it into place. Drag and select there. And then press merge. And we've fixed that hole right there. So fixing holes and combining meshes and things like that it's really easy in Maya. One last thing I want to show here before wrapping up this tutorial is I'll just delete this face right here. Let's say that we have a cube that I want to combine with this head right here. And I've got just a simple cube. Oops. And I want to combine it to this head. It's that same technique again, but there's just one more step I want to do. So if I want to combine this cube and kind of make it fill that hole in the head right there is, and again, I wouldn't do this like for anything, like if your character's wearing a hat or a necklace or anything like that, I would not, most of the time, just kind of use your best judgment, but you won't need to combine it into one mesh. But if this was like their ear that you're trying to combine, or if it was something, if it was a robot and something was like welded on, you know, that would be an example where you might want to combine it. So what you want to do when you're combining objects, and this is kind of another way I view of fixing things, I guess, is I'll make sure that that face is deleted inside the head right there, and then I'll right click and go to face, and I'll delete that face right there so that we've got some kind of a hole on each side. And this is going to be that V button shortcut again, but there's just one more additional step. So this is going to be 3 steps. So that additional step comes first. And so what I want to do is I want to move this into place. Let's just imagine that that's kind of where I want it to go. And what I'll do here is I'll hold down Shift and select the head and that cube that I want to weld onto it. And then I'm going to press this Combine button. And so look here in the outliner, there's P-Cube1 and P-Cube2, and they're showing up as 2 different objects. You can tell they're objects because it's got that gray grid on it in the outliner right there. So I'll press Combine. And you see here, it keeps the history of it, but it combined into one object here. So Maya, at least in the outliner here, thinks of this as object 1. But you can see here that it's pretty messy and we need to combine the meshes here. So in order to fully weld these together, just right click Vertex and I'll go into W mode and I'll just snap that vertice and then weld it or merge it. So just drag and select like that and then press merge, this button up here. And I'm just going to do that 4 times. So select this one. Make sure you're in move mode. It won't work. If I press V right now without it being in move mode, it won't do anything. So make sure it's in move mode because you're going to move the vertice. So I'll hold down V, move it and snap it, drag and select, and press the merge button. You can see here that this is shaded, so I can't see that vertice because it's overlapping. So what I'll do here is I'll just press 4 to go into wireframe mode, find that vertice, press 5 to go back, and I'll hold down V. I might need to stay in wireframe mode here. So I'll hold down V, snap it into position. Here I'm just going to drag and select and merge them together. Notice again how I'm switching between the wireframe and shaded mode when I'm merging things together. So the last one, make sure I'm in move mode, V, snap it together, drag and select, and then merge it together. So here, I was able to take that mesh and combine it with another, and so they're now one uniform mesh here. And now when I mirror it over, it comes in as one finished object here. And so that's kind of my main tutorial on fixing broken objects here. One other thing that I'll say, just kind of one final thought here, is geometry or topology flow is often really important. And a lot of times when you're trying to make your shapes and kind of do this Rubik's Cube of creating a character in Maya, you'll end up with some triangles that are really hard to get rid of. And the main thing I try to do is I try to feed it back into the center point. Like I'll try to find an edge loop and drag it, just route it back to the center point, because when it mirrors over, it'll create a 4-sided face on either side. And then additionally, I'll try to run edge loops into holes. So I'll keep the hole of like the eye right here, open for as long as I can most of the time when I'm modeling. And what that does is when I leave that hole there till the end and kind of patch it up at the end, it makes it so that I can feed edge loops into the eye there. And since it kind of feeds into a hole there, it's it kind of creates a lot of four-sided faces, which is nice. And then when it comes time to kind of deal with the hard work of getting rid of tries, since it fed into that hole of like the eye socket here, for instance, when it comes time to fix the tries and all that stuff, you'll be doing it back here on the inside of the eye, back here behind the eyeball where no one's ever even going to see it. Does that make sense? So if you end up with any triangles, it'll kind of end up back here inside of the model. And then final note: if you ever see a face and this object is gray right here, and you see a face that is showing up as black like that, let's just say that we have a few faces right here and they're showing up as black right here. So your mesh looks like this. That means that some of the faces got turned inside out. And so this should be an easy fix right here. So just right click and go to face mode and select whichever faces are showing up as black that are on the outside. It's okay for the faces on the inside to appear black, that's normal. And then you just go up to mesh display and then reverse. And that'll reverse it so that they're right side up again. You can do that with the whole object as well. So if I'm in object mode and I select the whole object here and I go to mesh display and reverse, it'll turn my whole model inside out. And then let's see here, select the model in object mode again, do it again, and it fixes right there.